Should we pretend that that was first try and unplanned? Or does the fact that I'm out of breath betray me? For me, skating in the winter can get kind of depressing. Just from a mental perspective, things like seasonal depression are very real in places that have long gray winters that are cold and you don't get a lot of sunlight. Today it's actually technically partly sunny here, even though it's still overcast and gray. But I do see a tiny bit of blue in the sky, which is kind of nice. Which is kind of funny because I never really minded rain or snow or overcast weather until I started skateboarding, and then I kind of desperately started hating it because it sucks to skate when it's like that. I don't mind a little overcast when the rest of the weather is nice, but when it's cold and gray and dark, it definitely messes with my mood just a little bit. Which in turn does mess with my motivation a little. I've already found myself more tempted to skip skating here in New York than I did in Virginia. And while everyone is of course a little different, I do think it's partly due to the lack of sunlight. I did grow up in rural New York. I'm used to trekking through deep snow and seeing the sun peek out from behind the clouds only a little bit during the winter. And that was actually what most surprised me about where I was living in Virginia. The 2 winters that I was there, it was just very sunny, much sunnier on average than I was used to. And I do think it motivated me to skate. Compared to New York, it was about 10 degrees warmer Fahrenheit on average, but looking out at a sunny sky in the morning always just got me juiced to go skate. I won't let it stop me, but I have noticed a dip in my motivation as the winter gray creeps in. And then of course there's the fact that it actually affects me. It is a lot harder to warm up when it is cold out. It takes a lot longer. My body, I'll speak from just my experience. My body's a lot stiffer. It's a lot harder to get my muscles firing. Sometimes, when you first go out, the cold is just piercing and it feels, I guess piercing is the word, against your skin, not scratchy, but kind of, if that makes any sense. But it just takes so much longer to warm up and feel good skateboarding that sometimes you're like, if it's gonna take me an hour to warm up, what's the point of skating, especially if you don't have a ton of time to be outside. And this sucked for me the last few years since I mostly skated on my lunch breaks. So winter skate sessions on cold days often left me finally feeling ready to skate at the end of my session. It felt like the last 5 or 10 minutes or so I was already warmed up, but I had to go home. Even in this session here, I had been skating for about an hour before I started filming, but after about 10 minutes of sitting down and talking to the camera, all the warmth and prep was basically nullified. It felt like I hadn't even touched my skateboard yet, even though I was feeling decent on it earlier. I also am still getting used to riding this much larger board. I'm excited to say that it's becoming more comfortable, but my flat ground on it is still rough. In general, everything is just slower and requires more exaggerated movements. But I think it's also helping me hone in on some of my own weaknesses, ones that I was aware of, but putting off. For example, my trick timing. Specifically, I need to improve my pop timing. Or for another example, my back foot. I need to lift it up higher. I could squeak kickflips by with a smaller, faster rotating 7.6, but this larger board is constantly getting caught on my low-hanging back foot. And then I've noticed from 3 years of skateboarding, once with a very cold winter and twice with not so bad winters in Virginia, but still cold, now being back here, I don't skate as well when it's cold. And it's just a fact. Even though I have these moments and these days where I get a new trick or I'm doing really well, overall, the amount of time I feel like is good skating, I feel really good skating, is lower in the winter time. And I think it might just have to do with the fact that it is so cold and I have a hard time keeping my muscles nice and warm and feeling good and being responsive and just all that good physical stuff. Bottom line is, too hot or too cold and I don't skate great. I skate the best in fall and spring. Thinking about it, I think most of my progress really does happen in the fall and the spring. I wonder if that's actually real. Have you noticed that? Do you skate better when the weather's more temperate? Because I know that I do, but thinking about it, I feel like I land more new tricks in those periods, which would make sense. But I guess that's a little bit of a rant not for today. Well, maybe it is a rant for today.
I definitely think there is a link between the weather and how well I skate. It's probably a mix of reality and imagination at play, but it certainly affects me. Just like a placebo, just because it's mental or happening in the imagination doesn't make the effects less real. But this isn't to say that hope is lost or even skating in winter sucks. I mean, if we were just chatting, I would totally say that skating in winter sucks. But I do consider myself very lucky to be getting some dry ground and that I'm healthy and energized enough to touch my board at all. So this isn't really a complaint. I wanted it to be much more of a chat, since I did notice a small dip in my skate motivation recently, especially on cold, overcast days. So you're not alone if you feel that way too. I think it's natural to be affected by the weather, but like I said, we're all a little different. Luckily and ironically, due to the topic of this video, the sun did come out in the second half of this session. And I wanted to make the most of it by rounding out my practice with freestyle. And of course, I couldn't skip warming up with footwork, a bit more of a mental warm-up than a physical one. So I started playing with some lines, and then went into a little bit of freestyle kickflip maintenance. I've also been trying to get better at using my Insta360 camera. I do like the angles it can get, but it really only performs well in really bright light. So I've been leaving it in my bag to try to take advantage of any sun I can get. And then I ended the session with way too many gymnast plant attempts. I sometimes forget how little endurance I have for those, since I can easily battle other tricks for extended periods of time. But these always leave me extra sore the next day, since I don't stand inverted very much in my daily life.
That's not the trick that I wanted to battle today, but it was still a lot of fun. I got much closer to it than I thought I was going to, which is why I really felt that if I just kept pushing a little more, then with a little bit of luck, I could have landed it. And this kind of session is good for reminding me that I just need to get out and skate. I always feel good after skating. Whether I landed stuff or not, there's always a little bit that I can be proud of and happy with, whether it's improvement, maintenance, new or old. Just gotta get out there every time.